Once we go more to the south of the North Sea, these sediments, they consolidate a lot more. So it's like a warning signal again that anything that anyone says about a nautical bottom in a particular harbor, you should be very careful in translating that from one harbor to the other. It will depend, we're still investigating on what it depends on. Is it mineralogy? Is it biology? Mud is a very complicated mixture, but these differences were already surprising to me. In the lab, we measure density and rheology. And for instance, for density, we have this density scan that we build ourselves. This is a radioactive source that can move up and down an entire consolidation column and can produce a vertical density graph. And we also have instruments to measure density on small subsamples. And for rheology, we use an Anton Paar rheometer that is both shear stress and shear rate controlled. So we have this vein that you insert into the sediment where you can measure the rheological properties. And we developed our own lab protocol because there's a lot of dependency on, it shouldn't be, but it is, that the rheology that you get as a result of rheological measurements, you have to be very careful to define how it was measured. Because the measurements don't seem to be absolute and can change from one lab to the other. So what we do is it takes about 20 minutes to sample. We measure an initial rigidity, and then we measure we break the structure of the mud, and for different spindle speeds, so different amounts of shear stress that we act into the sample, we measure up to what point we get a certain equilibrium shear stress. And by doing that, you can build what is called an equilibrium flow curve, and that describes the rheological behavior. And this is the final bit. This is what I call our moonshot. If we were Google, this would be Google X. The idea is, what if we could take a sample out of the mud and put it in a rheometer and determine this constitutive relation? This is all on a micro scale. You're talking samples of about this glass big. But the practical problem is actually a ship moving through it. It's a whole different scale. It has different shear velocities. So you have a translation problem you have a scaling problem basically. And our moonshot is, can we use CFD, computational fluid dynamics, to translate, to go from one scale to the other? That's the idea. That's what we're aiming at, but that's multi-year research. So the way we tackle this is we built this flume, we had this flume and we filled it with mud. It's in situ mud, it's Zeebrugge mud. And what you see here is it's a cylinder. A cylinder that we submerge in the mud and that we tow through the mud under controlled conditions. And we measure, this is used to measure the force that you need to tow this object through the mud. And then we simulate this using computational fluid dynamics. And this is work that we do in collaboration with the University of Leuven. And the idea is that this mud was tested in a lab for its rheological properties. And what we're trying to do is it possible, if you just know the rheological properties of this mud and you put this in a computational fluid dynamics model, can you then predict the force that you need to drag such an object through the mud? That would be a first step. This is a feasibility study that we do. So the question that we ask ourselves is, can we use computational fluid dynamics as a tool to investigate the navigation of ships above and in contact with mud? And we're starting with towing a simplified geometry. We chose open foam and we hope to deliver it by the end of this year. And that was my talk. Thank you.
Thank you.